motion regarding London City Airport has been submitted by Councillor Val Whitehead. Can you please move your motion? You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We know we're in a climate emergency, and yet Heathrow Airport is consulting on a plan which devastates local wildlife and communities and allows an extra 250,000 flights a year. We know we're in a climate emergency, and yet London City Airport is consulting on allowing an extra 40,000 flights a year, doubling the number who currently fly. We know we're in a climate emergency and that the poorest people of the world will pay the highest price, and yet 70% of all flights in the UK were taken by just 15% of the population. Expansion at these airports isn't going to benefit our residents, but they are the ones who already swelter at night because it's too noisy to open their windows. London City Airport wants to remove the current weekend closure and increase the number of early morning and late night flights, ending the small relief our residents get. London City Airport want to use larger planes, claiming the new generation are quieter. But this is only true for takeoff and landing and won't help my residents in Bow, who are already disproportionately affected by the new concentrated flight path. Instead of more flights, we need a new and sustainable transport policy fit for the 21st century, where the true cost of travel is considered and rail travel is made affordable for all. Our children and grandchildren are the ones who will pay for our complacency today, and we will have to answer to them and to the many people, millions of people who live in low-lying countries like Bangladesh who already face ruinous conditions. These proposals for airport expansion are just about making more money for the airport owners, but money isn't going to buy our way out of the climate crisis we are in. I urge you to support my motion.
I call upon Councillor Etisham Hague to second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am seconding this motion not just because I represent Blackpool and Kiwi Town, which is probably the closest ward to the London City Airport. I'm seconding this motion with much anger and frustration, and I wish we worded it with some bitter truth. London City is proposing to almost double the number of flights, in percentage terms, bigger increase than Heathrow's third runway. Even since it opened, the residents have been experiencing the new noise affecting their everyday peace, but have hardly experienced any benefit from it. Before the airport was built, residents were promised it will be small, operating only whispering jets. They feel cheated as promise after promise has been broken by an airport that they rarely ever use. City Airport employs only around 3,000 people, and because it's more expensive than other Southeast airports, most local people hardly can afford to use it. We should strongly oppose the expansion proposals and the proposal to increase the number of flights, not only because of the earlier recognition of a climate emergency, but also for the fact that it brings no benefit to the residents of this borough, apart from increasing the noise of wealth enjoyed by the few and fostering scandalous inequality for the many in this poverty-stricken borough. Yet again, let us not be fooled by another business consortium making profit for some elites on the other side of the Atlantic while increasing our sufferings. They deceitfully emphasize on the introduction of cleaner and less noisy planes that we cannot afford. London City wants to attract premium leisure passengers. It cannot offer budget flights because Ryanair and EasyJet planes are too big to use the airport. It plans to make more money on the income profile of its existing users who have the highest mean annual income of any UK airport. Business passengers earning 94k, leisure passengers earning 92k. Madam Speaker, ask yourself, and please ask the councillors present here, is this the income profile of our resident? London City concentrated all its flight paths in 2016 without properly consulting the residents. And now they are being asked to accept an expansion package that not only offers them next to nothing in return, but actually takes away some of the original conditions which were imposed to make their lives more bearable.
I've got quite a few of you that want to speak about this. Councillor Pourimia.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to support this motion, and I just want to address some of the philosophical underpinnings behind this motion, as well as address a previous debate, points that was raised in a previous debate around climate change. I think first of all, we need to accept that climate change is a class issue, and what it is the poorest in our society who suffer from climate change. But also we need to be aware that when we ask for policy changes, it's the poorest who are asked to pay for it. And I just refer to the cost increase of Uber drivers and taxi drivers in this borough. And it's now time for the more wealthier of our residents to actually make their contribution as well, including the city executives who come from Cornwall in the morning to work in London on a daily basis. The other thing I wanted to address, which was in the previous debate, was how do we bring everyone together? And it's not about talking down to people, it's not about educating people, but empowering them and entering into a dialogue with them to bring everybody along, because change is very difficult. And there is a 3-volume book by the German philosopher Jürgen Habermas on it, but I wouldn't recommend anybody reading it. But the principles behind that is that not all of us have the answers, not us, the politicians or people in charge, nor the residents or the people who implement the changes. But together, if we enter into a discussion, we can come up with better answers and bring everyone along in terms of addressing this crisis of climate change and making sure that the rich pay their proportionate due on a progressive basis in contributing towards tackling climate change. And that's why we need to make sure that London City Airport doesn't expand and they could be, etc. But what I want to do is use the example of what the power of dialogue is to go to the Persian poet Saadi, who in his book, The Gulistan, he wrote that when he was asked where he got his manners from, he said, I learned from the people who were supposed to have no manners. And what it teaches us is the power of dialogue, and we can learn from every situation and not be arrogant and talk down to people, especially when addressing change. And his greatest teacher that he wrote the famous poems about was an unlettered man, and the Arabic phrase is Nabil Ummi. And he wrote these famous verses, Balghat ula bi kamalihi, kashafat duja bi jamalihi, hasanat jami'u khisalihi, sallu alayhi wa alihi. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gabrielas of McCullen, please.
Thank you, Speaker. I very much agree with Councillor Val. We have to stand against the extension of Heathrow and the proposed increase of number of flights at City Airport and any extension to its hours of operation. We have passed a climate emergency, and now we need to see large-scale action on issues of climate justice. The Labour Party policy of a green industrial revolution demands intervention which are transformative, so as to bring about the structural changes needed to address drivers of environmental degradation. And for too long, approaches to sustainability have focused on the choices made by individuals. But here we can be clear, it is businesses that hold the power. We need to commit our radical thinking, and we need to be able to say no to the extensions of Heathrow and the proposed increase of the number of flights to City Airport.